So the first video in my Blank Case Files series is about Second Life. This video will be split up into 4 sections, as the first section will be more focusing on getting introduced to Second Life as a whole and understanding it from a new user's standpoint. The second section will be highlighting the more positive aspects, while on the flip side, the third section will be highlighting the more negative aspects. The fourth section is just a wrap-up, along with suggestions for the company behind Second Life and its community. Some people have known of Second Life but have never touched it, while others have tried it but found it deeply confusing while getting lost in the world with no clear goal. However, for users of Second Life, they have called it home for many years, and for some, continue to do so. The footage you will see in this video will not be of my main account that I normally use, since I made this account to document, give footage, and to see how the new user's experience is like in 2025. Although, I have been a user for around 18 years in Second Life. I have taken some breaks here and there, however I have been part of the community for quite a while and plan to continue to do so, even though I do catch myself logging in less these days. I love Second Life, but when I first started to become a user on the platform, it was a vastly different place than it is now. I was mostly around for the creative medium and the social aspect, and while you can still find these in Second Life, the user base has just shifted focus in several ways. I will go into this more later, but for now let's just start with a small brief history of Second Life and how it is for a newcomer. So what is Second Life? Second Life was made by Linden Labs with its initial release date of June 23, 2003, which is 22 years old with a healthy player base to this day. I say player base like it is a video game, but a good portion of people would argue that it is in fact not a video game. I'm inclined to agree somewhat, however some calling it a game is far easier, and there are in fact games in Second Life. It uses the Havok's physics engine, so it is a 3D platform, but most would consider it a 3D social platform than a video game. Second Life is a very complicated topic, and you will hear me say that a few times in this video. I have seen countless videos on exploring Second Life, however some of the videos express it as a dead video game. On the other hand, a good portion of the videos barely get an understanding of Second Life and label it as boring or something else. The truth is, it's hardly far from dead, and it's quite hard for someone just to understand Second Life right away. Now, am I calling the creators of said videos liars? No, actually, I will highlight how a lot of them are mistaken and how they even came to the conclusion of it being dead. If Second Life was on Steam, it'd be one of the top played games on the charts, but the thing is, why do you rarely hear about Second Life much then? Well, as I said, it is a complicated topic, but let's start with this actually. Second Life is not dead and far from it. As of writing this, 30,000 people are online at 5 in the morning. Now, is this number accurate? Well, yes, or well, it should. You see, there are allowed bots in Second Life used for various things, but they are supposed to be tagged as bots, and when they are tagged properly, they are not counted towards this number or for traffic in regions. Most I do believe are labeled properly, so this number should be about right, but it very much comes with caveats. Some people do use bots for nefarious uses, be it to bump up traffic for their region or to even use bots for harassment. Accounting for the improper use of bots, it does decrease the number of active players a bit, but should it really account for such a significant amount? Generally it shouldn't, however there is another aspect to this number, which are alternative accounts or alts. Many users have more than one account. I actually have a few myself that I use for various reasons, but generally I am not logged into more than one at a time, however some users are logged into multiple. Now, if it was just one alt, then things could be understood, as the normal user will not be logged into alts all the time, and the number would not be thrown into question. However, I do know a few people who use up to 5 or more alts at the same time, while often having them logged in at all times. Now, this account I'm using on screen is one of my alts, and I am currently only logged in as this one. I have 2 other accounts, which are my main one and my store account, which I will get into later, but for the most part, it's only used to deal with my store. Generally speaking, they are rarely logged in at the same time, which I do believe most people are like myself and only having one account logged in at a time. However, I do know several cases where this is not what certain users do, so the number of 30,000, is it accurate? No, it's not. However, the number should not be affected too much, and even if you say 10,000 users are alts and bots, it would still be 20,000, which is a decent number for being 5 in the morning. So let's say that new number is accurate. Does that mean all these people are truly active in-world? Well, again no. Most people treat Second Life these days as something to have in the background, only tapping back in to reply to messages. Some people even sleep with Second Life on so they can virtually sleep with their significant other. Minus the people clearly being asleep, a good chunk of this number is more than likely idly standing around somewhere but still active on their computer or near it at least. So, is Second Life truly dead? No, it is not, and far from it. However, it is a bit subjective in truth, and if you don't understand the workings, it can seem to be dying or dead. With this being said though, who still plays Second Life? Well, as I said, Second Life itself is a complicated topic, so every point of it will be complicated. This is a challenging thing to fully contextualize, as you will find there are so many communities it is hard to label people into one category, and oftentimes people will be in several. For example, you might find someone who's into building and making things, they are also part of a cyberpunk role-playing group, and behind closed doors, they're deviant. Another person who has a family in Second Life goes clubbing and also uses Second Life to keep up with close friends. Just these two examples show no overlap, but they fit into several little labels. On the surface, what you do in Second Life can be almost anything, and if you can't find something, you can just make it. You can upload your own 3D assets, and with scripts you can even go so far to make games in Second Life. Creative freedom is what Second Life was built on and continues to thrive because of it. Second Life can be massive, and generally, like I said, people will be in multiple communities. People have made businesses in Second Life selling all sorts of things, which will be more of a topic later. However, there is the obvious topic to talk about. While people have their freedoms in Second Life, this has created a more perverse side. I will not be highlighting this too much, but I do want to make it clear that there is a more perverse side and it's very hard to ignore at times. The adult side is a huge aspect of Second Life and a lot of people are a part of it, but lumping everyone into that category is disingenuous. Myself and a good chunk of my friends don't even participate in the more adult side. Labeling everyone as perverts that play Second Life is just not true, and I wish more could see this side of it. The point is, people have several interests in Second Life, so when I saw videos that the creator has not been a part of Second Life for very long, they often seem lost, confused, and the world seemed empty and perverted to them. Another aspect is that plenty of established users in Second Life do not trust newer accounts, so oftentimes they just ignore them, to which the creators of the videos I mentioned can make the world feel, well, dead to them. Some places are decades old and are relics, so of course will feel empty compared to newer locations. Back in the day, there used to be way more public spots where people went to socialize, and while they're still around, it's just not as popular as it used to be. Nowadays, you have to look for hangout spots or clubs to socialize, making it harder for someone new just to wander in. Now I want to talk about just a few of the communities. On the marketplace where users can sell their custom-made items, there's a list of communities that is labeled by Linden Labs as shown here. This list is only a fraction of the number of actual communities, but it's a start. The anime community is fairly small compared to other communities, but a significant portion of the user base nonetheless. Furries are a massive side of Second Life and one you'll see almost everywhere you go. The normal avatar, or normie as some will call it, is one that looks fairly like a normal person in the real world, which anime and furries obviously do not. So you can have an anime style avatar be into vampire stuff, or you can have a furry who's into sci-fi role-playing sims. However, you can meet a normal person who's into sci-fi stuff and a furry that's into vampire things. This does show how communities are complex and people are hardly part of just one. However, the majority of people in Second Life are using normal human-like avatars, but again, they can be in so many different types of communities. I bring this up because while Linden Labs lists certain things as communities, they are often just a style of avatar. Now there are furry and anime-only spots, but those are rare. There are other types of avatars, which you can be like a wolf or a tiny cat or robots or even some demon thing like I am. This just shows how vast Second Life can be, since you can be almost anything and be a part of anything. I will be going over communities all across sections of the video, but I wanted to highlight the basics of this to allow a base understanding of how things work in Second Life. Now, does this mean every community is alive and thriving? No, as some are fairly bare bones over the years as people log into Second Life less. Now you may ask, why are some of the communities bare bones over the years? There are several factors to this, and a large one is the age demographic. The average age currently seems to be unknown, but it's widely considered to be somewhere around 35 years of age, and for an online game that has this many players, it is a bit of a surprise to a lot of people. However, if you actually go onto Second Life and meet people yourself, you'll find it to be quite the case, as people generally are on the older side compared to other social platforms. I am in my mid-30s now, and a few of my friends in Second Life are much older than I am, and thus the player base being older sadly means a loss of life in general. I sadly have known users who have passed away over the years, since Second Life has been around for 2 decades, so it tends to happen. Now I am going to blur out names and faces, but something you will commonly see are memorials to remember people who passed away. Due to how the land works sometimes, these end up vanishing and are often just lost to time due to no one being able to pay for the land. There is a Linden Memorial Place, and there are a few places where you can even buy spots for memorials. It is a sad common sight just to run into little memorials, and it's a stark reminder of the age demographic of Second Life. Due to its aging demographic, a lot of people have just lost interest in Second Life. Some have moved on to other platforms like VRChat. VRChat might be a video I make in the future, however I want to briefly mention that it is a top competitor to Second Life. VRChat has a significantly higher anime user base than Second Life, and more likely at this point I would even say furries are more abundant on VRChat as well. There are other games like Final Fantasy XIV and other social programs like IMVU that have also taken away traffic from Second Life. Almost all of them have one thing in common, and it's that they have a strong social aspect to them. I know several people who have went to one of these other platforms and barely touch Second Life anymore. Another reason for the declining player base is simply the cost. While Second Life is free, there is a cost aspect in which is the next topic. So how is Second Life costly? Well, the cost is going to be the bigger part of this section of the video. First, let's introduce you to Lindens. Yes, I know, this will be confusing. The currency in Second Life is called Lindens, and on screen you can see a basic conversion rate of putting 10 USD dollars into Second Life and converting it into Lindens. If you were wondering why I was saying Linden Labs each time, this is why, because basically they share the same name. What can you do with Lindens though? Basically you can buy anything, but mostly you can buy land, clothing, or furniture. Let's start with owning land and how regions work though. Second Life allows you to own land in several ways, but first we will cover buying land from Linden Labs themselves. You have 3 options, but kind of 4 options, the first of which being mainland. Mainland is split up like the continents on Earth and is split up into regions that connect in a grid pattern to form said continents. Regions are basically like a server loading zone, and as you can see here, I am at the corner of a region and there are 3 other regions I can walk into as they are connected. Listed here are the continents of the mainland. This is not very important, but depending on which one, there will be regions that are separated into 3 ratings, which are general, moderate, and adult. General rating, there's no adult activities at all, and one must be wearing clothes while adhering to the rules as shown. Moderate rating is a bit more complicated. This allows erotic stuff, but only with nudity, as promiscuous activities will have to be behind closed doors. Adult rating is, well, pretty self-explanatory. Now on to land purchasing, as you can buy either a small or large chunk of a region on mainland. However, you must own Second Life Premium to get any land on the mainland, which is the first cost of many. Generally, if land is abandoned, you can message Linden Labs and they will allow you to purchase it. Although, some land will be up for sale by users with a markup, which is generally because it is valued land they are looking to sell. For example, this land is by one of the mainland roads that has traffic, so it's highly sought after. Now, you can do whatever you want on this land as long as it fits the ratings of the region. However, you do have another option to take since you're a premium member, and that is Linden Housing. This is actually one I have never really touched personally. I know plenty of friends that have though. It is pretty straightforward, as you get a house in a neighborhood and that's that. You can decorate the house however you like, but this is more limited since you are stuck with a pre-made home, but it's supposed to give you a more lived-in area kind of feel. Mainland in theory was supposed to have a lived-in area feel as it has roads and stuff, but a lot of homes are in the sky or just out of the way from the roads. Linden homes are limited by design to keep a uniform look of the area, unlike mainland. Also, you are only allowed a certain amount of land impact per area of any type of land you obtain. Land impact is a limit of how many objects you are allowed to place on your land. The size of your land on mainland is actually what determines your land impact, so you have to get more land in the region to obtain more land impact, or buy your own region. Buying a region allows you to get the whole region all to yourself with way higher land impact usage and with no neighboring regions. This is an awesome deal as you can get so much land impact, so much land, and you can be in a spot with no neighbors, so what's the catch? The pricing is the catch. I didn't say the price is a premium earlier because I wanted to get to this spot right here before I did. As you can see here, premium technically comes in 3 ways, plus, premium, and premium plus, and here are the prices. You do get a free amount of land with certain choices of premium and also a chance to get a Linden home, but you have to choose between one or the other. You can buy more mainland space, but it'll be about the price of a full region in the end. Which you might be wondering, what is the price of a full region? Well, this is it. But wait, that's only the monthly price, not the setup charge, so this is the initial price. This is hard for normal users to pay as it rivals the cost of real-life renting. However, there is a cheaper option, and that is homesteads. You can buy a homestead for half the price of a region. However, you will get a stunted land impact and lower amount of users allowed in the region at one time compared to a normal region. Previously, the messed up thing about homesteads was that you already need to own a region before you could even purchase a homestead. Thankfully, now with Premium, you can get a homestead now with it, of course with its charge on top of the premium cost. Now earlier I mentioned that there was 3 to 4 ways of buying land. So what is the 4th way? Well, it's renting from a company in Second Life, which might sound a bit weird, but let me explain. Renting land is legit business though, and one that has made some people very wealthy. Some people may scoff about renting land in a virtual space, but this is a common practice here in Second Life. There are companies in Second Life who rent out spots for various uses, although you might be asking, why would one rent instead of just buying a region? Well, generally it's cheaper, and most of the time a user doesn't have a use for a full region. However, maybe only a fourth of a region will do for their needs. Normally a person can't pay for a full region due to the high price, but can pay for part of one, at a little markup of course. This allows the landlords to make their money, as generally they split regions up into sections. You could pay weekly or monthly, and if you fail to pay, then you'll be evicted off the land just like real life. This is what thousands of users do, as most people are just renting in some way. The land barons in Second Life make a living out of this, not just in Second Life, but the real world too. Now you can of course buy other things and are not just land. Other users sell their products and services, which can be almost anything. People that you purchase products or services from will be paid by you in lindens, and when they want to cash out, they can by turning the lindens into their country's currency. Second Life is a job to some people, although some treat it like a side hustle, which is mostly how I treat my store in Second Life these days. You see, you can create a lot of stuff for Second Life, which the most common are clothes and furniture. To some, this is where most of their money goes into, and this is also why the entry point to the game is more complicated than one would think. When you first start up Second Life, you'll have an avatar, and you can customize it to your liking, however it is very limited. Clothes selection are going to be outdated or just vastly fewer options. Just recently they added an avatar welcome package which gives you a proper body and heads, however it is a limited version. If you want to have full features of the body and head, then you'll have to buy the actual products. Due to it being a social game, you'll want to fit in, so you have to purchase a body that is popular that has clothes for it, since the default body is far from being popular. As you can see on screen, buying a body can be a bit pricey. Then you have to buy a head, and as you can see, it's pricey again, with some being on the cheaper side at least. Then you'll want clothes to personalize yourself, maybe some accessories, maybe you'll want some demon wings, maybe you bought a place to stay and need some furniture. You get the idea though, as it's a sinkhole of money, and for some it's not a luxury they have. Now generally one does not need to spend much to be socially accepted, as most places accept the default avatar, and some users even love the old style avatars. There are freebie places that allow new users to get free stuff, but it is of course limited, as an example of a place will be shown on screen. However, on the flip side, you're not really paying Linden for most of these products, as you're paying another user. The said user makes money off you buying their product, while normally you'd be like, screw paying a company for all these microtransactions. But in this case, you're mostly not giving Linden Labs money, but in fact another user. On screen is the marketplace, which you have seen some screen grabs from already, but this is where most stuff is sold, as all products here are user made. When you buy something on the marketplace, it's then delivered into your inventory for you to use. You can even get demos for some products, so you can test them out before you purchase. However, a lot of stores even have in-world locations, and some stores only have in-world locations. So why would some users only have in-world stores to sell their products? Well, Linden Labs takes a cut out of marketplace transactions, and a pretty hefty one at that, but in World there is no cut. Linden Labs takes 10% out of marketplace sales, which makes users want to avoid it by having an in-world store. Then when a user wants to sell their lindens, the selling fee for it is 3.5%, and Tilia has a 5% fee on top of that. These numbers could be a little off, and I apologize if they are, since I have not withdrawn money from Second Life in a while. If you are curious to what Tilia is, well, it's basically their money platform, which is a whole other thing. Creators have even made shopping events that range from monthly to yearly, while some have even made discounted sales like the popular weekend sales. Shown here is one shopping event, and I wanted to get footage of it walking around, but I realized I would have to blur out too much, so I opted just for a safe screenshot. The vastness of the marketplace and its problems will be something I shall cover more later, but in short, it's mostly player driven with very little involvement of Linden Labs. When I was writing this, something happened in the market of Second Life. I was going to hold off mentioning this till later, but the existence of gachas in Second Life, and it's not one set by Linden Labs, but the creators of the products in Second Life. For a while they were banned, but as of right now, they are allowed back onto the platform. While of course you are not forced to gamble with gacha, however, some people have gambling problems, so yet another factor how money can be an issue. So this free-to-play game is not so free-to-play, as most are not, so after all it's hardly a surprise there. So could there be anything else that would make someone quit playing Second Life? Well, yes, and it's simple. Things have gotten too erotic. Second Life is not a place for children, and honestly, it should stay that way. I actually do not think this is truly a bad thing, as Linden Labs enforces the rules to ensure the platform is safe. However, this has driven many people away, more so newer people who had no clue how erotic Second Life can be. It's always heartbreaking when you get into something new and the community is so toxic, but well, that isn't the problem that most people run into here in Second Life. When a new user starts playing, they just see the abundant amount of adult material and can be put off by it. Now, not everyone wants to shy away from adult material, but it is a reason nevertheless that some people have left. As I said before, I will not be going over this aspect of it too much. However, I will touch on it more later, but this is YouTube and well, I would like this video to stay up. Now this section of the video is more for the people who have not touched Second Life, so they can understand the basics better. Second Life has so many oddities to it that a normal new user will have no idea really where to begin. If you have a friend that can teach you the basics, then you'll mostly be fine with the learning curve. However, if someone was to just stumble upon Second Life, then well, they might be very lost. There's so many terms like prims or bomb or bento that newer people just have no clue about, and when they see these set terms, they will not know the meaning of them. Using these three that I listed, a prim is just a simple object you can spawn in various shapes. Balm means bake on mesh, and it's like a layer system for your skin, so you can add makeup or tattoos. Finally, bento is how bones work, and nearly everything is bento these days, so this one barely matters as almost everything is bento now. Camera controls are vastly different than other games, and movement can feel weird and sluggish. If you are new and try to socialize, you will feel out of place quickly if they start using custom gestures. The thing is, Second Life is vast and deeply confusing, full of minor little details rarely explained. Many tutorials have been made by Linden Labs over the years, but most new users just learn from other users. Even the UI can be confusing, and on that topic, depending on which viewer, the UI can be vastly different. You see, Second Life uses viewers to access the world of Second Life, which you can very well just download from their website or even play in your web browser, or heck, even on your phone these days. These are the official ways to play, but there are third-party viewers that one can download to access Second Life, one of which that is the most popular is Firestorm. It has features that the normal Linden viewer does not, like having a different UI, photo tools, item search in world, and more. Firestorm is not the only third-party viewer, as there are others like Alchemy and Black Dragon, which are not as popular but are used by many. This can make a confusing experience for a new user. Sometimes when a person's getting help, the info can be off simply because they're on a different viewer. Which viewer a person should use is down to just preference, but as a new user you simply do not have a preference just yet, so it just adds to the confusion. Even if you get a good grasp on how things work, you'll always be learning little quirks about Second Life. One big aspect of Second Life is that you can make anything you want and upload the mesh to Second Life. However, it has some tiny quirks as I will show. Let's say you want to make a door, so you make a door and upload it, but the rotation is just in the middle of the door. Well, now you need to go back to Maya or Blender and add a triangle to the other side, give it a different material so you can make it invisible in world. Then you can properly rotate the door. Even if you set the origin point in Blender so it works well there, it does not translate that to Second Life. This is just one example of many that just shows that you never stop learning things about Second Life. In its 20 plus years of existence, Second Life has used a scripting language called LSL. Only recently they are adding Lua, which I have not personally touched much on. However, LSL is something you just have to learn if you are interested in scripting and have to work around its limitations, but it's not a scripting language that is popular. Now, does a normal user need to learn this stuff? No, not at all, but when a user is looking up guides, it might just slip in, making the user think Second Life is more complicated than it truly is. Now, I said a lot of things that might be a bit confusing, but I hope this helped you understand Second Life a little more. Now, is the learning curve a bad thing? No, but it does turn people away sometimes, either because they struggle or do not have the time in their days to learn something like this. Second Life's competitors generally have an easier entry point, and one that you can just pick up and quickly get the gist of how the program works. VR chat is fairly simple compared to Second Life, as they give you some basic avatars and even teach you how to use portals so you can be on your way to exploring VR chat's worlds. VR chat might be more complex when you get an avatar customization, but its entry point is not, which makes a new user's experience all the better. Now, are the current residents of Second Life welcoming to newer players? The answer is yet again a complicated one. You see, in the past, Second Life used to have a huge troll problem, ranging from just fun to downright vile trolls. The real problem is, a good amount of people have experienced both types and simply do not want to interact with them no matter what. Now, what does this have to do with newer accounts? Well, newer accounts are often just suspicious to normal residents of Second Life as they view the new users as a potential new troll account ready to mess with them. In other cases, people view newer accounts as someone stalking or harassing them, as some have already dealt with cases like this in the past. Some view newer accounts as someone who was banned from Second Life by Linden Labs and is returning with a newer account to avoid their ban. If a newer user learns too quickly, then they are oftentimes labeled as one of these. Sometimes these talks happen in public and other in whispers, but a strong general consensus is often that newer accounts are rarely newer users. Now, is this the case? Sadly, I would say often it is. I have no real data to go off of, so I'm mostly using my own experiences. Most of the time when I see a newer account, they are just someone who has touched Second Life in some way in the past. Now, there are in fact real newer users. Oftentimes, someone will get a friend to finally check out Second Life, and they help the newer user fit in easier by helping them learn everything while also vouching for them socially. However, a newer user that doesn't know anyone is always going to have a hard time breaking stigmas. A lot of places will say they accept newer users, but when the newer user find a place they think they can socialize, they often will get cold shoulders. A good chunk of places in Second Life are occupied by established users and thus having established social circles, so it's difficult to just jump into one without knowing someone already in these said circles. Second Life is mostly a social-based game, so when a new user is having a hard time being social, figuring out mechanics, and possibly being viewed as a troll, it can be a challenge to fit in. I would say you have to wait a year on your account at least to not be viewed in a suspicious light by some people. It is something I deeply do not agree with personally, but I have seen this mentality several times in the past. This account has even experienced some of these, and while yes, I am not truly a newer user, it does show the mentality is still there. Thankfully, not everyone is like this, but if a newer user encounters these scenarios, then well, they often will not log into Second Life much. Now, we have talked a lot about the new user experience, but we have not covered how the new user actually finds Second Life. These days, it feels like most new users are friends of someone who is a user on Second Life, and it comes at their recommendation. A few will have some niche hobby and will get it recommended or discover Second Life through that. However, does Linden Labs advertise at all? Yes. Over the years, they've used countless tactics, and you can check their Twitter account for some of them. At one point, they even tried to bring in the Twilight fans with the Become a Vampire ad. All in all, their advertising feels like something is off. I remember one time someone mentioned Second Life to me as they thought it was a scam from the ad that they saw. I have no clue which ad they saw, but clearly something went wrong for them to think that. Ironically, I think it's the users that do the best advertisements for Second Life. I have had people mention they found Second Life through Twitter screenshots many times. Clearly this shows kind of the problem that Linden Labs has as they struggle to bring in the new users themselves. They recently have focused a lot on the mobile element, going so far to even offer free Lindens to users for logging in on it. However, the mobile client is deeply limited, some features just not even there, and most of the time people just use it to check messages from bed and that's it. More than likely, they hope to capture a mobile market, which might be hard to do with, well, the next topic. Performance. And well, this is a rough one. Time and time again, I always hear one complaint about Second Life, and that is it's just really laggy and I'm barely getting any FPS at all. This affects newer users and older users all the same. Due to the recent but needed graphical update that added PBR texturing, the performance has grown even more of a problem. There are viewers that opt out of utilizing PBR textures, but this causes a divide between the user base. One person can see this beautiful landscape and someone on a non-PBR version will just see gray textures. What is the cause, you may ask? Well, at the very beginning of the video, I mentioned how old it is and the engine that they use being the Havok engine, which is a bit dated. Everything is out of date and being held together with glue and tape, but however, this is not the sole reason for low performance. The other is optimization of the 3D assets. Since everything is generally player-made and not everyone is a master at optimization, you will see some things being optimized well enough, but other things not at all. As you can see on the screen, this item has a high amount of triangles that are not needed. Performance also has another factor to it, and it's the user understanding the settings. Oftentimes when I hear someone say they are lagging, they have their settings all the way up, or worse, a crazy render distance. The requirement to run Second Life has only increased throughout the years, which is also a problem for some of the much older users of Second Life that do not understand technology well. Not to mention the pricing of what goes into PCs these days, and you generally need a decent PC to run Second Life. While you can just use a toaster for a rig and run it well enough, however you will need to fiddle with settings, which can be a hassle for a new user. Now this wraps up a rough outline of Second Life. As I said, I mostly wanted to make this part of the video as kind of an intro to Second Life as a whole for a new user experience. Now, I did not cover everything, nor will I, or this video would take utterly ages to produce. The next section I want to focus on will be the positives of Second Life, highlighting a lot of the aspects which make it fun and unique. So the positive traits of Second Life. This section is of course subjective and of my own opinion and experiences. Over the years, Second Life has changed and some of the more positive aspects are relics of a bygone era. However, that doesn't mean the state of Second Life is in a bad spot. To me, of these 18 years I have been with it, generally have been wonderful. However, it has also changed deeply. Although, one thing that will never change is just the feeling of it being old. Now hear me out, because you might be wondering why I view this as something positive. Since most of the time a program being old just means it's outdated or completely abandoned with only a few people around at best. However, what I mean by being old as a good thing is that Second Life continues to be one of the few social platforms that feel like the old internet. At times you will wander throughout the mainland and see an unironic troll face out in the wild or something else that's clearly dated that was placed years ago. The user base being as old as it is makes the users just more mature and also were a part of the early days of the internet. Of course, not everyone is mature, but generally people tend to be fairly mature on Second Life. The old feeling of Second Life is difficult to describe properly in truth, but it's one I share with others. One moment you teleport to a super realistic place that could be out of a game that was released in 2025. Then next you teleport to a place that looks like a game from 2007 with old looking objects strung about. Due to how dated certain places are, some have not been touched for possibly decades now. Some people will feel the outdated stuff is an eyesore, but to myself it has a charm about it, and I think a lot of users are accustomed to seeing the dated stuff and rarely think about it. It can be hard to find older places on the internet that have decent activity, and while of course not every place is active in Second Life, it's still easy enough to find people. Throughout the years, Second Life has advanced so much, at times it just doesn't look like it's over 20 years old. All the footage in this video are places in Second Life that I thought would be good background shots to show the beauty of Second Life. It all started out with just prems, but when Mesh was released, it created a definitive line of eras in Second Life's history. Mesh can be insanely more detailed and has advanced Second Life to the modern age of 3D graphics. Some users stick with the old style avatars, finding them charming, while most have moved on to more modern styles. However, the great part to me is just seeing them stand next to one another and interact with one another. Second Life is always evolving and it is neat like that, but just seeing all the ages of items in Second Life still being used regardless of the age is pleasant. Now you might ask, why did you label old stuff as being bad in the first part? And well, this is a simple answer, since the first section was more about the new user view on things, and while this is a positive to myself, it could be viewed as a negative to the newer user. Sometimes a new user will see something that looks amazing and breathtaking on Twitter, only to log in and see some really outdated stuff. Some long-standing users do dislike how old stuff looks and will often steer away from it, which is perfectly fine. What I exactly mean about Second Life being old isn't just limited to 3D objects and the people. Some communities in Second Life have been around for a rather long time, with some being there from the start. Some communities are old and hardly have changed in all these years, while some are newer and growing. I will use furries as an example here. They have made up a large portion of Second Life's user base, which has led to some of the most creative minds who have graced the platform. However, even with the fancy creations they make, some furries are still looking like they're from 2006 and they enjoy the way they look. That's all that really matters in the end, is if the user is enjoying how their avatar looks, be it with old or newer objects. I'm using furries as an example, but highlighting that there is just vastness in the community of them, even down to the style. As I said earlier, you can find furries almost anywhere, but that doesn't stop it from being a community in of itself. There really are not any normal human or normie communities, but that's because they make up most of the population. Some places will ban furries or anime, but thankfully it's rare, but this does show the divide and how those two can be labeled as communities. The anime community in Second Life is not the biggest, but it's there, and a good chunk of them are from Japan, but does that mean most Japanese users are anime? Actually no, most I have met use normal human avatars while some are anime and some even being furry. Japanese communities exist with other languages as well, spanning all over the world, making Second Life feel very vast. Out of all my friends on Second Life, I would say only half speak English as their native language. The user base is mostly made up of Americans like myself, but it has a large group of European users and much more across the globe. Generally, if you get into Second Life, you'll be a part of a few communities, maybe just a hangout spot, but also being a part of some role-playing group or something that fits your interest. This is a wonderful feeling since you can have so many interests and be a part of so many different communities. One of the things that saddens me about Second Life is that the average user rarely has more than 1 or 2 spots they frequent. People should explore and get to know others and experience the wide world of Second Life more and not just be glued to one location. I will go over this more in the negative section of the video, but I wanted to comment on it here as well. Communities are what fully make Second Life feel unique, as you often get to meet so many different types of people with varying interests. I have a group of friends I generally hang around with and play video games on the side. About once a month though, we will have some kind of scheduled group field trip per se, where we end up randomly going to locations. Sometimes someone will have a place they want to show everyone or something to do as a group. It's never really a real serious thing, but it's just something we plan just to have some fun and explore Second Life. We mainly do it as a way to hang out, since a lot of us are spread out across the world and hanging out in real life takes a lot of time and money, so we use this as a substitute. However, we also do this so we break the habit of idling in our hangout spot. During these outings we run into people, and some are talkative while others ignore us, but generally we try to be respectful while also being sociable. We end up seeing the creativity that is Second Life through countless different locations, all being different from one another. Speaking of creativity, the user base is very creative. This is important since Second Life is truly built from the creativity of its user base, as they make almost all the items that are in Second Life. All the items that you see on my avatar were created by users, as only the default bodies and some clothes are made by Linden Labs. I have heard Second Life be described as a Barbie doll simulator game, which is not too far off for some people. You can be whatever you want, but more importantly, you can create whatever you want. Over the years with Mesh, people have made beautiful avatars, beautiful scenery, amazing games, and even art. Linden Labs has official locations they made, but most of the places in Second Life are created by the users. Almost every place you visit will look different in some way. Sometimes you'll see something that is using the same building, but perhaps a user has used a different custom texture on it. I really should have mentioned this in the first part, but let's go over permissions real quick. You see, items have 3 sets of permissions on them, which are copy, modify, and transfer. Copy just allows you to be able to copy the item into your inventory, and you might think to yourself, that seems to be something you'd think would be normal, right? And mostly yes, but I'll get into that later. Modify means you can, well, modify the item, allowing you to simply change the textures or resize it, and going into advanced stuff, you can either delete or add scripts into the object. Transfer means you can give it to other users, as you mostly will see this on gestures, which can play sounds or worse, be annoying. However, sometimes transfer can be set on an object so people can just share the object around with one another. One thing that I love is when someone creates something goofy while setting the permissions to transferable and just watching people have fun while toying with whatever the item is. Some users think everything should be transferable, and there is a decent sized crowd that thinks this way, but also on the flip side, there are people that make money in Second Life, so it's a little unreasonable. Some of the creative things people make take considerable amount of time to work on after all. Stuff like mini golf, you'll often find that it's free to play, but you can buy it at a store. People will buy it and place it on their land for visitors to have an activity that they can enjoy, or even just for their own private enjoyment. Furniture is often something bought and can be used by many, and oftentimes it is if it's located at a club or something with decent bit of traffic. Clothing is something of course more personalized, and it can be hard to find 2 people wearing the same article of clothing, and if you do, oftentimes the clothing will be using a different color or texture. This helps the user in the smallest of ways to be creative and unique, as Second Life has several methods a person can express themselves. For example, this look of my avatar right now is a style that I have seen others look similar to, but not exactly like this, making it unique to myself. Over the years, I've created various things for Second Life and helped me understand a fair bit of 3D modeling and even how to run a business. Generally, I do not make much money these days in Second Life sales. I am often busy with my real life, so creating newer stuff for Second Life has slowed down over the years and has been less of a focus for me. However, I do keep in contact with users who need support for my products, and sometimes I might make a goofy little thing just for fun to pass around. I still make some money, but nothing really to live off of, thus I treat it more as a niche hobby these days, mostly just allowing me to be creative. I generally keep the money I make in Second Life these days, well, in Second Life, and never use it except to pay for my land and any little purchases I make. In the past, I did make some real-life money off Second Life. It was a joy to do so, as it allowed me to be creative and help pay some of my bills. Allowing people to express themselves in a myriad of creative ways is a lovely thing. As I keep saying, you can be whatever you want generally. One thing I heavily miss about MySpace over Facebook is how personalized MySpace was. I think a lot of people took that for granted and still do, but Second Life is a place where you're not limited to just an icon and a description, but you can personalize yourself and show the world your creative side. Just like MySpace profiles, some will be obnoxious, but others will be pretty and show off their talents. However, no matter what, it helps express your personality, which I feel like most modern social platforms are often just plain and struggle to show off a person's personality. This is not me saying all new things are bad, as for example, I love VR chat. I would say I spend more time on VR chat than Second Life these days. However, Second Life has this just like hold on me that makes me keep returning to it. Another thing that I love about Second Life is exploring around the vast world of it. You might find something so old and wonder how it's still around, but to someone they love this place and more than likely they still do, or at least have fond memories of it. The thing is, Second Life is old, but it's evolved while still having the old parts around, celebrating years of creativity throughout it. While Second Life is old, this means it has a long history, some of it bad, some of it good, but this is the positive section of the video, so let's highlight some more. Second Life has helped launch people's careers, one case being Pirate Software. He was a creator in Second Life and now he's making his own game while streaming on the side. He is a more well-known figure, but a lot of creators have ended up working jobs in the video game industry and learned from creating in Second Life. While I did not end up in the video game industry myself, however, the industry I was a part of for a while was aided by the skills I learned in Second Life since I was more accustomed to 3D software like Maya and Blender. As I stated in the first section of the video, some people have even made Second Life their job, as some people have teams working for them making legitimate businesses in Second Life. One I'll highlight is Mad P, a business in Second Life that makes various amount of products, but they mainly create interactive products like mini golf or quiz games, for example. Most people know the land barons of Second Life through its documentary, as they are landlords in this virtual world, but there is a lot more to it. These people provide for their families through the services they bring to Second Life. As I said before, you're hardly paying Linden Labs, but actually paying a real-life person and not some mega corporation. Business-focused creators are a thing, however not every creator is like that. Some people like myself do it mostly for fun at this point, while some do it for artistic purposes. Rhino is an artist in Second Life that makes interactive art that is sometimes very thought-provoking. Recently, Rhino even released a game on Steam, however they have used Second Life as a platform for their art for years now. The footage playing in the background right now is from one of Rhino's exhibits. Some music artists will even do concerts in Second Life, some authors will do meet and greets, and so much more I could cover, but I do not want this section to get carried away since you can see the point. In short, Second Life gives these artists a way to express themselves and mingle with their community while also helping them get their name out there. For some users, Second Life is used to expand a hobby. One of the bigger communities in Second Life is driving, and this can mean things from drifting, motorcycle clubs, to even delivering packages. A lot of times, whatever your hobby can be, you might just be able to find it in Second Life or find people who are into the same hobby. Wrestling, for example, has communities that are quite active as they host scheduled shows for people to come and watch, with some even having merch you can snag. It's charming to see these people out and about, since it just reminds me that there are elements of Second Life I barely know anything about, as it expands my horizons upon meeting them. While sometimes someone's hobby is some kink-related thing and you'll find that here in abundance depending on what it is, but Second Life is just so vast as it oftentimes feels overwhelming. One of the bigger scenes and communities are dance clubs that will have DJs playing music and people dancing around to it. Second Life is filled with hobbies and activities, as some might not be as popular as they once were, but you will still be able to find someone who is at least into them. Oftentimes social platforms kind of struggle with engagement like this, as users end up getting bored or just finding less reasons to log on, and while that does happen with Second Life, I see it happening less here. For myself, Second Life has been a hub for my friends and I just to hang out virtually. Some are not logging in as frequently as they used to, even myself included, but Second Life has never really vanished from our lives. Sometimes you can log in and find a beautiful location just to relax and unwind the day with a few of your friends and just socialize with them. When COVID hit, Second Life had a spike in traffic. Ever since the lockdowns have ended, the traffic of Second Life has slowed down to its normal range of traffic. However, it showed that when people were locked in, devoid of social interaction, they looked towards Second Life and other social platforms. A decent amount of social media feel like restricted spaces these days. Something like Twitter, where you can interact with people on there, but oftentimes it's short and brief. Twitch is another example where you can interact with people, but oftentimes it's in short bursts because the streamer is too busy or the chat is too fast. This is not to say those social media platforms are bad. Oftentimes people will be using more than one, and that is even true with Second Life. Users of Second Life even created a Twitter-like clone called PrimFeed for the very reason to have it exist so people could connect outside of the virtual world. Forums used to be a familiar sight back in the day, but these days it's become rare. Stuff like Discord helps a ton keeping up with friends and communities, but generally the internet is becoming less and less personal and in some ways lonely. Now, Second Life has its problems just like everything, but it deals with being social kinda like real life. Although, to me, when I log on to Second Life and socialize with my friends, it feels more impactful since they are sharing a virtual space with me. Second Life is a social platform though, and someday it will grow to truly be empty, but I do believe as long as the servers are still up that there will always be people around, even if it's fewer than it used to be. Let's go back to the communities of Second Life for a bit. Role-playing has been a huge aspect of Second Life's history. One of the biggest is Gore, based on an old book series. However, there are many different types of role-playing that you can find, ranging from Star Trek to DC to Game of Thrones and much more. Not every role-playing community is based on intellectual property, as some base their locations on their own created worlds with strict guidelines to keep the world making sense. Some might view the strictness as a negative, but would you want to play a normal D&D campaign to where one person has a laser pistol breaking the set pieces theming that the Dungeon Master set up? No, of course not, so the strict rules that are in place are necessary to keep things on track. Some groups take it very seriously, while others not so much, as occasionally places will allow people just to visit and wander around, just asking you to not disturb the people that are role-playing. While other places will not even allow that, making it clear in the rules that you have to sign up to even fully enter. Oftentimes you'll see some sort of combat system being used, however these vary and depend on place to place though. Combat is one area of Second Life I know little about, as I have not really touched the combat side much. I have toyed with a few combat systems of friends, like guns and swords, but the other systems that are way more involved and complicated I have not. For example, there are communities that use World War II warships and fighter planes to simulate battles that I have just never touched or really even looked at. There are some others that have deep RPG mechanics with classes and such that again I have not touched, mostly due to not having time for it though. Now I'll bring up the combat systems again later in the negative section of the video, but let's move on to more positives first. One activity I participate in and quite enjoy is sailing in Second Life. Sailing is just so calming to me. Generally you will sail around in an area called Blake Sea, which are regions mostly made up of water to sail around in. I go sailing about 3 to 4 times a year with friends, just having a calming journey and talking about things while sailing. There's a decent sized community for it, and generally you always run into a couple of people at least when you are sailing. However, it doesn't have to be just sailing. You can drive around on mainland and just have a relaxing trip on the road. Sometimes going on mini trips with friends in Second Life is just fun, but this is also a great way to explore Second Life and to meet new people. One lovely thing is how much the Second Life community does for charities. Every year there is the Fantasy Fair, to which tons of creators build areas based on a theme with little shops in them. The shops will be selling various items for proceeds to donate to the charity Relay for Life. Fantasy Fair is a big event that happens every year with tons of activities to do. I wish I had some footage of this, but by the time I had, well, time to record, it was already over sadly. This is not the only charity event, as there are others, but I wanted to make a quick note of it since it's a wonderful thing that the community does as a whole. The community does a lot of charity work for all kinds of causes all throughout the year, and it is always just wholesome to see. There are also games to play in Second Life, some being simple like poker, while others are complex like farming. Some of these are free while others are not, but it does highlight yet again how much you can do in Second Life. Generally the fun and enjoyment is what you make of it. Do whatever activities you want or just simply relax and chat. There are a ton of other social platforms that try to mimic what Second Life has achieved, and well, they have failed, but somehow Second Life has succeeded. Keeping users entertained is hard, and Linden Labs hardly does anything about it since it falls more onto the community. Without the users of Second Life, it would have died a long time ago with the rest, but the community to this day is thriving, albeit less than it used to be. VRChat is comparable in this regard with how much the community is the reason it's successful. Just like with Second Life, VRChat had many other platforms try to mimic it over the years, one of which being called Sandsar, which is a segue to the negative portion of this video. So, the negatives. No matter what the platform, there are always going to be some sort of problems with it. Some will have more pressing issues, while others will have just mild annoyances. What kind does Second Life have? Well, I think I'll split this up into two subcategories. The first being problems with Linden Labs themselves. Then I will cover problems with the Second Life community as a whole, from creators to just normal everyday users. First up, the problems with Linden Labs. Are they a bad company though? Not really. A good chunk of the problems with them can be simply boiled down to mistakes and negligence. One of the biggest mistakes was Sandsar, which launched in a beta S state in 2017, July 31st. So what is Sandsar? To put it simply, it's like VRChat but just never really took off. It is vastly different from Second Life, but it did have a similar feel to it. However, Sandsar was a focus of Linden Labs for quite some time, ultimately leading them to even selling Sandsar off to a company called the Wiki Project Corporation. After it was sold, I know very little what happened to it. It seems to be still online, but with barely anything that you would call a player base. So what made this a failure and how did it affect Second Life? Well, I have mentioned that Second Life is a dated platform and well, one of the reasons is because of how Linden Labs treated it. They focused so much on Sandsar that additions for Second Life were pushed back or put on hold for a while. Features like PBR textures, which should have been released years sooner, were just on hold while Sandsar was a focus. This is speculation, I admit, but it is clear they had a lot of development time put into Sandsar, and it is not a long shot to think that a good chunk of the developers' time got split from Second Life into Sandsar. It is a common opinion that Linden Labs wanted users to perhaps move to Sandsar to make it their primary social platform, or perhaps have users play both Sandsar and Second Life. However, with the lack of support for non-VR players, not many were attracted to the platform, while also all the inventory that you had in Second Life was unable to be transferred over into Sandsar. These reasons made people simply stick with Second Life, since the people at this point had invested so much time and money into Second Life. Sandsar did have a store from the get-go, however it was fairly bare bones, but while being similar to Second Life's economy and trying to even mimic it. While the market was not as robust as Second Life's, it still did decently well, and a few people even created minor businesses in Sandsar, though it was mostly selling clothes. Now I won't dive into Sandsar and its history too much, maybe in a future video, but I wanted to briefly highlight this was Linden Labs' focus for quite a while and one that clearly made Second Life suffer. Sandsar was a VR project and mimicked VRChat in some ways, however this does make one wonder why they didn't attempt to add VR into Second Life. The thing is, a few users have made VR work in Second Life, though to middling results. Now why this feature was never really implemented in Second Life by Linden Labs is a mystery, but the more likely cause was Second Life's dated engine and the complexity of user-made assets. All this being said, in the past couple of years, support for Second Life has been growing and improving. Thankfully, Linden Labs has shown they are caring about Second Life and the community and wait. Oh, a large portion of the staff were laid off, and due to this, currently as in 2025, the staff that handles support is now bare bones. This is a clear problem that the community is facing, as you can check out the Second Life subreddit and you'll find users' accounts being on hold for no clear reason and taking months to get a response. Harassment has been rampant lately in the world of Second Life, and I've heard of intense cases of stalking happening in many different communities. A small vampire group I know has a minor stalker, and even if it's minor, it's still something that should be taken care of in some way. I have heard of a large case of stalking happening in the anime community even. I'm not really around them too much, but when I was checking out places, it was a topic of conversation among the community. One of my furry friends is currently being stalked to oblivion and back in Second Life, and even bleeding into real life. It has become so bad they legit refuse to leave their home in Second Life, and in real life they are scared as well, and with all these cases it seems like nothing's being done about it. Users are in fact being banned for various reasons, but somehow Linden Labs keeps dropping the ball in some support cases. So the support staff is clearly doing their jobs as well as they can, but obviously some of the cases like stalking might be a little hard for them to work with. The staff being spread thin is most likely because they are focusing on cases that could bring them into legal trouble, and which the stalking and harassment cases take a back seat, although this is all speculation on my part. Linden Labs focusing on the more extreme cases does make sense. Making sure adult activities stay adult and legal is important. Copyrighted material is also an aspect they have to take seriously if the copyright holders file claims. However, the users are struggling in several ways to get support, and these clear issues are still going on for some. In short, laying off the staff clearly has shown their goal is not for the users, and of course, like any company, is looking to make money and save money where they can, which is why layoffs happen. Now, I do believe support could perhaps be in a better spot in the future, however, only time will tell if this issue will be solved. Which brings us to the next issue, the pricing of regions. The pricing on regions is outright insane, as in 2025 they still charge $200 monthly to rent a region. The reason, of course, is that people are still paying for it, so they have no real reason to make it cheaper. Real estate moguls in Second Life own thousands of regions and rent them out for people, which if they ever decrease the price, then the real estate market would collapse instantly. I generally rent a small portion of a region for myself and for my friends, and while it's nothing too big, if the cost of owning a region was a fraction of what it is, I would buy a region for myself instantly. Pricing might have made sense in the past, but these days it hardly makes sense at all. Maintenance is a factor, of course, but the rates are outrageous, as you can find renting a real server could be used for way more than a region would be about the same price or even cheaper. On Open Simulator, which is a user-ran version of Second Life, you can find renting a region to be about 1/4 of the price. Will this ever change in Second Life though? I highly doubt it, and if it does, it might mean things are really going downhill for Second Life and could signal the end times due to them being desperate. This is just one of the ways they make money, and it's clear that it's making them a decent amount of money. And Shi Chung has made so much money in Virtual Spaces as they dubbed themselves the first virtual millionaire from having a vast market of land and other ventures in Second Life. They also have created a large amount of wealth in IMVU, which IMVU has an even higher number of users compared to Second Life throughout the years, although it seems to be weakening lately. I rarely touched it, but IMVU is an interesting topic that one can look into, but I will not cover it beyond this. I digress though. Linden Labs of course will focus on making money first and foremost. They are a company after all, but some of the methods they've used and continue to use are mind-boggling to say the least. Which brings me to the next topic, gacha. Honestly, when I had the idea for this video, I was going to label this as part of something good since it was banned by Linden Labs. I viewed that as a positive, but then, like I mentioned earlier, Linden Labs decided to flip on the matter. Gacha was prominent throughout Second Life for a while, but allegedly due to some pressure from countries in the European Union, they decided to ban them. To me, this was a victory. Gacha generally was no mod, no copy, only transfer, which did allow you to trade or sell, but this limited creativity. Gacha is predatory at times, and some creators are basically scamming their customers with it. I remember one store I shall not name, but they sold clothes, gacha only clothes, but the thing was, oftentimes they would never sell them again after an event closed, making a scarcity of a product which made users have a sense of fear of missing out. It was a plague and was one I was happy to see vanish, however, as of 2025, it is back. The day after the announcement of allowing gacha to be back, a shopping event opened to which one creator already had gacha ready and selling. It was pretty low effort, but it was still there. I have no clue if it'll be popular as it used to be in the past, but if it does, I would believe there will be yet another problem. When gacha was banned, Linden Labs allowed creators to have a replacement system that was called Next Up. This system basically allowed you to see what you could get in the queue, and while it was not as scummy as gacha, it was still a problem. It never really took off in popularity, which does give me hope that gacha's return will face a similar fate. Gambling is a vice for some and a curse for others. In Second Life there's something called skill games, which is basically gambling. In truth, I've never touched them at all, as I find the idea of it off-putting to myself. Linden Labs has created special regions for it, which do have restrictions for people who live in a country or state that does not allow gambling, as one will be blocked from entering the region. This is just wrong on so many levels, but it has to make them money, and sure, you might say it is up to the user, and you're right, it is up to them, but gambling is a problem that many people struggle with. Having an easy way to gamble from your own home and on your computer just makes it all the more enticing for people that have gambling issues. And yes, Linden Labs considers skill games to not be gambling, but if that was true, why is it banned in so many places? However, let's talk a bit more about regions in Second Life. I already covered the cost and how crazy it is, however, regions do have their own issues apart from the cost of them. Let's use an example. Perhaps you want to get into the driving side of Second Life, so you buy a car, and you might even find some track to drive on to get used to how the car controls. So then you start driving on the mainland, but when you are at the edge of a region about to cross is where the problem begins. Region crossing can be so laggy, basically stopping you right at the edge, just causing so much trouble, which range from making the car vanish or just extreme rubber banding. This is an issue that happens only from time to time, but when it does, driving is almost impossible because of it. This can even happen when you're walking or even flying. Linden Labs is supposed to improve on this, but after 20 years you'd think it would be even a smidge better, but alas, it has stayed in this poor state. This makes the combat side of Second Life kind of, well, be in a poor state as well. Most combat systems do what they can and are serviceable, but the lag can make it just unbearable at times. Second Life regions also have a limit of how many people can be in one region at a time. Sometimes it varies, but generally it's around 45 to 100 people. Now, is this a bad thing? Not really, but for something that is supposed to be massively social, having this barrier is infuriating the few times it does show up to be an issue. Let's say your friend invites you to some event, and you click the accept teleport. Well, whoops, you can't get in because it's too crowded, but your friend can because they have Premium Plus. This is a feature that is rarely talked about, however, Premium members can just squeeze into busy regions easier. This is hardly a huge deal, but it is a thing. So why is the limit of users in a region an issue? Well, it's very simple. This puts people off from even trying to go to events, and let's say a concert is happening and the region is full and they have no way in, well, they completely missed out on it. This just encourages another issue I will mention in just a bit, to where people barely leave their own little areas because problems like this exist. Now, is there a fix to these region problems? Maybe, however, it would be a massive undertaking on Linden Labs and quite possibly a change on how regions even work entirely. I thought about including a bit more of just highlighting more issues of Linden Labs, but some of it would be borderline gossip material, which I rather try to steer away from as much as possible. There are some scandals and whatnot you can read about. The scandals are not really too damaging, but there are some who do believe the scandals go deeper, but again, I rather steer away from gossip material and stick with facts in cases like this. Generally, Linden Labs does a decent job at keeping Second Life from having some vile people on the platform or letting it become a den of illegal activities. In short, they are not the worst company ever. In some ways they have shown they care for their user base, but in other ways not so much. Slipping up here and there, and hopefully some of these issues are resolved in the future. Which brings us to the topic of the negatives with the user base. This section will be of my own opinion and experiences, so please do not take everything I say here as facts. I mentioned earlier that gacha is more of a problem caused by the creators of Second Life, as Linden Labs doesn't sell gacha themselves, only the creators do. Generally, the entry point for gacha is set fairly low, like 75 lindens, but some creators will have them bundled up in fat packs, but for a much higher price while others do not. You see, these fat packs are a bundle of whatever items are in the gacha, allowing the user to bypass a gambling aspect, but not every creator's gacha will have a fat pack. Some creators are hoping the customer has a sunk cost fallacy and hoping the user spends more at the machine till they get the item they want or the whole set. Gacha aside, some creators have an outright insane pricing for items. I would say a lot of things are decently priced, like some creators have stuff they call fat packs that you can get versions of in colors all in one package. They are different from the gacha fat packs, as these you can buy singles outright or you can buy them all bundled, which is the fat pack. Sometimes creators will not give modified permissions for objects except in the fat pack, which is a subject of debate for some users. Generally I view this as fine, but then some create in mega packs, which you can see where this is going. Mega packs often hold out on even more exclusive textures for the product, and of course, for a higher markup in price. Sometimes fat packs are just as guilty with this though, but it varies depending on the creator. Pricing is just up to the creators, and if you want something to be sold for thousands of dollars, you can, I suppose. Generally, this is heavily subjective. Personally, I rarely put money into Second Life anymore, as I'll use my store's income to purchase anything, so to me this is more of an annoyance than a big issue. However, for the average user, they are putting a decent amount of money into Second Life just to pay for these products. It is a hard thing to balance for the creators in fairness, as oftentimes creators are just trying to put food on their real life table. So this is a struggle I can easily understand each and every side of, though there are clearly some creators who just want to squeeze the most money out of their customers as they can. I also rarely buy anything these days, mostly because I use a male focused avatar and, well, creators are very feminine focused when creating content. This one is not really an issue per se, as the user base has a large amount of female users and the market leans heavily into them. In 2015, which is old info I know, but the best I could find, shows that the primary users of Second Life identify as female and seems to be the case even today, so this info should not be too wrong. Now this info I showed only had 60 respondents to it, so the info could be skewed because of this, and should be taken with a grain of salt. This doesn't mean creators of Second Life do not create stuff for masculine avatars, which is just the amount of content created for them is significantly less compared to feminine avatars. Going into the marketplace, you'll see under apparel that women's clothing has 3 million listings, while men's only have 400,000 and unisex has 70,000, clearly showing the large gap. This is hardly an issue, and if anything, it's a personal one, but I find myself not really too invested in shopping due to this. I have heard many people have this issue before, but there's not much that can be done about it. Of course, creators need to do whatever they can to make money, so I do not really blame them, but it is a sad side effect to have. Originally, just like with Gacha, I was not really going to mention this. You see, this project has taken many months to do, and a few rewrites. Originally I deleted this segment, but after seeing how bad things are becoming, it is, well, something I have to mention. So what is this problem that I'm alluding to? AI art. Yeah, that's just it. Originally AI art was around enough to be noticeable, but was never a true eyesore. However, it just is now. AI art is everywhere, from people's profiles, AI ads, AI paintings, and even some people are selling 3D AI assets. I have never been a big fan of AI art, but it's something that is going to stay, so I never really threw my hat into the ring of just hating on it hardcore. I suppose I am a slight artist. I made all the icons in my profile picture myself, but I cannot say I'm a very good artist. Maybe someday I'll hire a real artist to replace them. So I do get when people who are not talented at art willing to do this. Sometimes you need a quick and simple art asset to be made, and people who are afraid of just trying themselves will go for AI art. However, beyond the basic person, what I really do not get is the stores that are selling AI products. It's so low effort, it's just kind of baffling to me. I have no clue how much it actually sells, but it has to have some buyers. Originally it was just some club owners putting like an AI wolf or something on their club, but now it's everywhere and a lot of it is not even that good. This is a goofy problem really, but it really does discount your place when there is just AI art everywhere versus a place that has custom art. Also, people who are selling AI art without disclosing that it is in fact AI are a problem and should be addressed by Linden Labs. One issue I see many communities in Second Life make is that they are being too closed off. Generally how this goes is you search for a place, find something that seems to pique your interest, teleport in, try to chat, but only to get the cold shoulder or a conversation that is impossible for you to enter. I mentioned this happening to newer users in the first part of the video, but honestly, can happen to anyone. Time and time again, I hear people complain about this, and as time goes on, I hear the complaints more. In the past, people would hang out in very public spots that were like big plazas where all kinds of people would just hang around and talk. Sometimes you can still find this, but it's far from being as popular as it used to be. Voice chat has declined in popularity, mostly due to people treating Second Life as a more background application, which I myself am guilty of. You can find some places where people will still be chatting on voice, but it is less common as it used to be as well. The social climate is beginning to get harder for people just to squeeze into places and fit in. Thankfully, not everywhere is like this. I actually went out of my way to visit a few communities and talk to people in them on this account. I wanted to get a good fresh view of the newer user experience, and thankfully in almost every type of community I did find some that were welcoming. Even if I did not fully fit into their aesthetic or themes, a few places were very welcoming. However, I was met with a lot of cold shoulders. I mentioned I made this account mostly for this project and how newer accounts were often viewed as something suspicious, and this is very much what I encountered. Some people knew right away I was not someone truly new and called me out on it, but I was not really trying to hide that. Most thankfully did not outright ban me or get belligerent to me, however it did happen a couple of times. Now I do not hold it against them, and I will not name locations or people, but it does happen and it sucks to hear and experience it firsthand. I think a large portion of the issues I have with the community of Second Life is that it simply has changed over the years. Maybe I am just the old man waving the stick in the air and just longing for a better time. I really want to believe that the users of Second Life could easily look upon the past and learn from it and be aware that they are in fact the users that define the communities that they are a part of and Second Life as a whole. Be it owners of clubs who form cliques, or shop owners looking to nickel and dime people, or whatever. At the end of the day, the community needs to be aware of how it looks. Another major issue I have and don't have is how much Second Life has become a sexual platform. I have no problem with people expressing their sexuality or kinks or anything, of course, and generally I do believe most places do it tastefully, but others not so much. However, when you are searching for something in particular on the search function and come across some extreme sexual content, it can be jarring. Since at times a search phrase you typed in has nothing sexual attached to it, so you have to wade through those that are just to find what you want. There is a filter for all the different ratings, but at times it's not really that helpful. This is not a problem of just the community, as I do believe Linden Labs can make a proper tag system and it would help a ton. People also are barely clothed at times, which makes filming this a headache in of itself. General rated areas did make it a little bit easier, however those were not as common as I was looking for interesting spots to film and most of them were on moderate or adult land. The thing is, do I think this is an actual problem? Not really. The age group is older and more mature, so it's fine. Matter of fact, if Linden Labs was to ban all sexual content today, it would kill Second Life in an instant, as a decent chunk of the users find that Second Life is better like this since it has more freedom than other platforms. Some people view Second Life as just some deviant platform that people use for perverse ways. However, the average user might partake in such matters, but generally the person will be on Second Life to, well, be social. The people who play Second Life are consenting adults, and Linden Labs does follow through with their rules and bans people for breaking them. One could talk about this topic for hours, but due to how YouTube is, I'm not going to go into this anymore. Plus, I'd rather not shine a huge light on it because Second Life gets a bad reputation already from it and it doesn't define Second Life for what it is. So yet again, something has happened while in the process of making this video. This again was something I was not going to mention, but I feel like I should now. For many years there was this gossip site for Second Life drama called Virtual Secrets. In 2024, Virtual Secrets shut down. I never really cared much about it, but it always seemed kind of strange to me of how popular it was. Now, not every user was using it, but it did get a decent bit of traffic. The site just allowed anyone to just write gossip about anything or anyone into an image as shown. Well, when I was editing this and talking to some of my friends on Discord, suddenly one mentioned that it's coming back under a new name. This is just kind of wrong to me in my own personal opinion. I get people love their drama and such, but from what I always saw of it, well, it was just petty nonsense. I didn't even want to mention it since it was a thing of the past, but yet again, just like Gacha, it has crawled out and has become a reality once again. Lastly, the final negative I have is a real simple one. Users need to expand their horizons more. Every year on your Res Day, which is like your birthday for your account, Linden Labs sends you an email with a list of what you did during the year. The list shows how many regions you visited, how many teleports, and your longest login streak. For the last year, I have visited 750 regions. I teleported 2,798 times, with my longest login streak being 20 days. In the past, this number of mine was larger, however I am still fairly active in Second Life, but I have been less so over the years. Now this email they send also tells you the averages of all the users. The average visitor regions was 101, teleports 393 with the login streak of 3 days. The login streak barely matters, but the regions and teleports seem rather low for the average user, and in truth it's because a lot of people barely leave one spot, their home or hangout or whatever. Second Life is still a very active social platform, but a good chunk of people hide away in their private spots, rarely leaving them. Having a private spot is not a bad thing, but people are often just secluding themselves. Maybe it's because Second Life is not the big, new, shiny object anymore, but I do feel like people spend very little time expanding their horizons in it. I say this because I myself was guilty of it a couple years back. I was just spending time in a secluded area with just a few of my friends having access to it. This area still exists, and yes, I still spend time there, but I also spread my wings and go to public places, and not just one, but a few, regularly. I also participate in events, while sometimes I also break out of my shell every once in a while and go somewhere I normally would not. I sometimes just randomly explore the vastness of Second Life. All of these and more have made it a much better experience for myself, and I have met many new people even just this year that I wish I have known earlier in my life. Now, am I saying that everyone needs to be a social butterfly? No, of course not. I just think that Second Life has become a much secluded experience for some, and that is a sad way to treat a social platform. Well, this is the end, and I hope this video has helped you understand Second Life a bit better. I contemplated making this video much longer as a large portion of material got cut out of my final draft. In truth, there is so much more to go over for each section, and I am sure I even missed some more obvious topics. The adult section is obviously lacking, and well, like I have said, I'd rather this video stay up, and I also want people to see the other parts of Second Life. I apologize for the many odd additions that I added into the video. I was surprised to even see so much happen in the short time I was making this video, but felt like they should be added into the video anyway. Maybe I will do a sequel to this video someday or an addition to it. This is also my first project for my YouTube channel, and for me it's sort of a learning process, but a fun and exciting one. There might be some audio issues here and there, and I apologize for that. When I started to record my audio, my parents asked me to take in a dog, and well, I didn't refuse, so sometimes you might hear her in the background, but I try to scrub it clean. I also in the past had a few speech issues that I had to work on, so hopefully those were not too apparent. However, to me, Second Life was something I heard about 18 years ago, and was a magical place then and still is a magical place now. I mentioned I logged in less, but I still do from time to time, and it's still a place I care about, but I wish it was in better shape all around. If you are curious about Second Life and want to check it out yourself, I can't fully recommend it. If it sounded interesting, then sure, you can poke at it, but generally unless you fully know what you're getting into, don't bother, because it can be a frustrating experience. Second Life is also a perverted place in a lot of areas, so if you can't stand that, then well, this isn't for you. But if the nuances of Second Life are something you have the time to learn, then I would say sure, check it out. For the people who are residents of Second Life thinking, why didn't he cover this? Trust me, I more than likely considered it. The original script even went down the full history of Second Life, but I decided to do a very condensed version of it that would at least give a decent view of Second Life. I mostly wanted to give a view of a long-time user, from when I joined till now, as Second Life has vastly changed over the years. In my opinion, not for the better, but that's my opinion of course. My suggestion for Linden Labs would be a simple one, and that is just focus on helping out the established users. Trying to get newer users is a noble goal, and of course, on paper will bring in more revenue. However, I feel like some users that have left could have stayed if things were different. Support is in shambles, and a decent amount of users need help in some shape or form. Second Life has always been truly popular because of the users, so Linden Labs should really focus on them. Another suggestion, but I feel like would add a lot, is a proper tag system for searching for locations. How it is currently is, well, fine, but due to the nature of Second Life's adult side, some simple words can lead you to some extreme stuff. Having a better system might help this problem, because I do know some users tire of seeing it all the time, and some newer users have shied away because of it. Also, please rethink the prices for land. Although I feel like this is just me asking for a unicorn. As for the established users of Second Life, my suggestion is one you already heard me say, and that is to spread your wings a bit more. Almost everyone I meet are great people, and I'm sure a decent chunk of people are worried about drama, as I used to be one of those people. I hid away in my private spot for some time, however, ever since I started wandering around more, I have met plenty of wonderful people who I can say are close friends of mine now. I also want to thank a few people who have helped me with this video. First, my friend Mark, who helped in almost every way possible during the process of making this video, teaching me the basics of video and audio editing while giving wonderful feedback. Without his help, none of this would have happened, so I say with all my heart thank you. Next is a close friend who I've known in Second Life for a couple years now, but she wants to stay anonymous. She helped with a lot of the assets in the video and also was able to find certain things for me while I was busy, so thank you. Lastly, just all my other friends on Second Life. You all have made some wonderful memories with me through all these years, so thank you. Anyway, thank you for watching this video of mine. The next Blank Case Files video will be on a similar topic that might take some time to produce, but just like this one, I have had some long history with it. More videos will be released soon, so best wishes for everyone till next time and take care.